Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Cadre Animal Health Real Estate Show. Coming to you from the great city of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Ron Evans, and once again, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, real estate extraordinaire Joe Golden.
Hey, Ron.
Hello, Joe.
Hi.
How are you today?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this show and all of the content that we produce is brought to you by our family of commercial real estate companies. Kudu Realty Partners is our brokerage company, Cadre Animal Health Real Estate, Cadre Construction, Bluefin Design, our architecture firm, and Huffman Builders, our development brand. So, Joe, we're going to talk about the exciting topic of civil engineering.
Believe it or not, it is.
Everyone's favorite.
Because it can always come back and bite you if you don't do it.
Or save your butt.
Yeah.
That's right. So, a lot of people hear that term, and I think you and I have experienced it. I can remember walking on a site with a client of ours, and we asked him about his civil engineer, and he wasn't even quite sure if he had one.
Yeah.
He had kind of started the process and was really ready to get going and looked a little bit like, I'm not sure what a civil engineer is.
Yeah.
So let's play like I don't know, Joe. What's a civil engineer?
Civil engineer, we like to say, is the architect of the dirt. They lay out the plan, the footprint of the building of what we want to put on there. And they are knowledgeable enough and know their way around the city. They will let you know whether a decel lane from the street is needed.
To slow down cars, to slow down a safety
ingress,
turn.
egress coming into the property. The size of trees, if they could be removed from the property, a detention pond, whether it's needed or not. And we'd like to say a 1 acre could handle a 10,000 square foot facility. If a detention pond is needed, then you're looking at probably about a 7,500 square foot facility. And the civil engineer would let us know that.
All right. So let's unpack a little bit of that because there's a lot there, right? So first of all, when we kind of use those very loose metrics, right? What's the plural of metrics? I don't think you can say metrics.
Matrix.
Matrices.
Matri.
Yeah, matri. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
That's a loose kind of rule of thumb for us in the industry as a developer, right?
Sure.
And I differentiate even there. I differentiate between developer and builder because the builder is the construction company, right? The developer is the person, the company like we are that does all the things that brings the builder in onto the team.
The coach.
Yeah. So we bring the architect onto the team. We bring the civil engineer onto the team. We bring the construction company on or we are the construction company.
Yeah.
And we're working with the city. And so that's when I say developer, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And as a developer, we're working with the civil engineer, right, on this piece of land that we've identified. And hopefully it's a square or a rectangle because they're efficient. And hopefully there's not a lot of slope.
Yeah.
Because often it's hard to build on a slope. And like you said, if you get that perfect site, you can build maybe 10,000 square feet on an acre. Unless you need a detention pond.
Yeah.
7,500 square feet 10,000 if you don't.
Yeah.
7,500 if you do. What's a detention pond? I know there's even some areas in Texas who don't. We have them all over Central Texas.
It's just a rain capture system for the groundwater, so it just doesn't run off into the Gulf of Mexico.
That's right. So it slows it down.
Replenish the aquifer.
There you go.
Yeah.
It slows it down to not overstress the downstream system, right? And it cleans and filters when required, which is frequently rain that collects pollutants as it runs over a parking lot, for example.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've got this site that we've identified. In a previous episode, we talked about site selection. And we said in that episode that we would expand on the concept of civil engineering. Mm-hmm. When is that being done initially?
During feasibility.
Feasibility of
what? Well, the property that, so let's back up a little bit. The veterinarian makes a decision that they want to build a new facility. Mm-hmm. They've identified a piece of property that they wanted. We get it under contract. We negotiate the feasibility period, from preferably 90 days to 120 days.
Okay.
Sometimes it may be 60. Sometimes it may be 45.
That's
You got to
tight.
really move it if it is 45 or 60. But and during that feasibility period, these are the things that we're finding out, whether it needs a detention pond or whether it needs a decel lane, if the utilities are available, if sewer water is available, or, maybe a septic system.
Okay.
If a heritage tree could, or if a tree is a heritage tree or not, if it
Yeah.
can be removed or not.
Yeah. Because
So-
sometimes it sits in the footprint of where the building's going to go,
Yeah, exactly.
and it reduces the efficiency of that land.
Yeah.
Okay. So during that feasibility, what you're saying is we, not us, we don't have civil engineering in-house, but we are helping the veterinarian bring on a civil engineer.
Yeah.
And they're hiring that civil engineer initially under a modified contract. They're not hiring that civil engineer to necessarily draw the site plan in its total, because they don't even know if they're going to buy the land.
Correct.
They're just hiring them to do what we would call feasibility or due diligence.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I always like to think, well, you know what I say all the time. What's the finish line of that process?
Well, finding out if it's doable.
Yeah. And taking it to the city.
Yeah. Getting to the point of having the planning committee meeting with the city.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of cities call it pre-development meeting. We want to help our client get through that feasibility with a civil engineer at a cost. That our clients are going to hire the civil engineer, but it's like you said, money well spent.
It's the best money they'll ever spend if they're going to be moving on a new piece of property.
That's right. I had a client call me one time, and I'd talked to him many times, and he was looking for land for 3 years, and he was so frustrated. And he called me one day, says, "I have some fantastic news." You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, I bought a piece of land. I need to talk to you about building my clinic for me. I said, "Who was your civil engineer?" He said, "Well, I didn't have one." And I wanted to say, that's not really great news. That's terrible news. And it cost him. When a lot of the idiosyncrasies of that site became expensive to him because it wasn't vetted. Now, on the other hand, let's be fair to the doctor. He got a great deal on the dirt. It ended up being worth it to him. He loved the location.
Yeah.
It was still his dream come true.
Yeah.
But the point is, during that feasibility period, we're going to help the client hire a civil engineer. That civil engineer, you said that they're the science end of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're gonna vet that property for if it needs a detention pond on site, or if maybe there's shared detention. That's
Yeah.
great when it's off site and your water can run to that shared detention pond.
Yeah.
If there are significant setbacks, just because it looks like a property goes all the way to the property line doesn't mean you can build there.
Exactly. There's it could be some easements under there from the city, electrical,
Right.
sewer, whatever,
Gas.
and nobody could build right up next to the road.
That's right.
But there's always setbacks.
We built one in Hutto, Texas, that had a diagonal gas line going right across the property. When you go look at it, you can see where we built up to and stopped, and that parking lot went right up to that easement, and we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't matter, other than you have to plan for it. Other times, it makes the site unworkable.
Yeah.
And we have clients who, during that process, obviously, or we wouldn't be having this conversation, they drop their contract because of what we discover, the skeletons in the closet, as we say.
And again, that's what it's all about, to find those skeletons.
That's right.
And during that process, Cadre Animal Health Real Estate is managing the process, the coordination between the civil engineer and the potential buyer.
I like to think of us as an interpreter.
Yeah.
Right. So we speak both the languages. We speak the language of our client, and we speak the language of the civil engineer. So us that's the developer in us, right?
Yeah.
We have all these facets of real estate, all these services baked into our family of companies. The developer part, like you called it, a coach.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're doing, is we're coordinating so frequently and acting like an interpreter in these roles.
Yeah.
Because the client's going to tell us what they want, ask us a lot of questions. Civil engineer is going to speak in very different language, very different terms. And we have to play kind of that go-between to communicate those messages and make sure that the end product is what our client's looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say you could be the pulling guard for our coach.
You know, I'm 5'9", and I would say my weight, but I'm not sure that's a topic for
or a wide receiver. You're
Yeah,
wide
sure.
receiver.
Yeah, let's go with that. So, so it's at a cost to our client during the feasibility on the land. We get to what I call the finish line, which is the pre-development meeting.
Yeah.
So that what that means is we're setting up a meeting with the city. Used to always be in person. Since COVID, sometimes it's on Zoom or Teams, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But we're sitting down with the various divisions. So, permitting, traffic, landscaping, signage, fire.
Yeah.
And they go around, we've sent them our draft site plan, and that's the product that the civil engineer has come out of the other end of this feasibility with, right? Like you said, what'd you say? They're the architect of the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got this draft site plan with some data, some details, and we present it to the city. And then that's our first chance to really understand, what
we got.
Yeah, what we got.
Yeah.
What kind of resistance we're going to get. They're going to say, that's a great idea, but I'm not going to let you put an entrance there. It's too close to that traffic light. Or they're going to say, yeah, you're planning a septic system, but we have a code that says if there's wastewater within a quarter of a mile, you've got to tap into that wastewater.
What was the story that you had the egress and ingress problems and the one heritage tree in the middle, and you had to end up making 4 turns into the back of the property?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so I don't remember if we talked about that previously, but I
think it was a different episode.
Probably.
Yeah.
So that's something that we discovered. That's even before we got to the pre-development meeting with the city.
Okay.
But you can go into those pre-development meetings, and when you get the feedback from the city, that's like the teacher grading your English paper. You feel great about it when you turn it in. You hang your head when she passes it out with that big red grade on the front.
The walk of shame.
The walk of shame. So that's the end goal. We want to accomplish that before the money goes hard on the earnest money contract or the land. We want to have completed that. You can usually get out of there knowing if you've got, like you said, knowing what you got.
Yeah, exactly.
And that engineering is the best money that the client will spend as they're considering the site for the new facilities.
And potentially save a lot of money long term for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, let's say that it passes muster. The client goes hard on the earnest money, and they ultimately close. That's when now, most likely, that's the same civil engineer you'll use. Then they begin working on a full set of plans.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about in a future episode about the timeline. That process alone, let's say that let's say you do have to have a detention pond. Well, that goes to the TCEQ, which is the Commission for Environmental Quality at the state of Texas. They can take up to 4 months, maybe it's 3 or 4 months, just to get you
to respond
the first time. Well, that's only after you've submitted a full set of site plans, which can take several months to create.
Yeah.
So you start to say 3 months for this, 3 months for this, 3 months for this, and you realize that it can be 8 months, a year before you even break ground on your project. It can be. And then it can be a year to build.
I tell that to clients, and there's the perception of many of them that they can have something built, they can move in within a year. But a lot of times we're not even breaking ground within a year.
That's right.
There's just so much to the process of getting there.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they better really like us, because if they hire us, we're so involved in so many levels that we get very well acquainted over sometimes a 2 or 3 year period.
And readily available.
And a lot of our clients are now using us for their second, third, fourth project. Yeah. So we're going to like their kids' birthday parties and stuff.
True.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Great information. Thanks for joining us. We hope the content is educational and helpful. Again, reach out to us and talk to us about your specific projects. We'd love to hear from you. Information will be linked below on how to contact us. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.